It's that time of year where a lot of people have set goals, hopefully set some big goals, some New Year's resolutions. A lot of people at this point in time have already failed and given up. If you can relate to that, or if you want some step-by-step tactics to help you crush any goal, this is the episode for you. Okay, Lacey, so we're talking about 6 steps to crush any goal this week. Why don't you get us started with number 1?
Well, sure. So everyone sets goals, right? But what we're going to break down here is that nobody takes the time to really reflect on the habits that they need to change or to create in order to make those goals happen. So yes, everyone loves New Year's resolutions or goals or I want to do this or that. But do you ever sit down and actually break down what habits are going to be needed to either be created or change what I'm currently doing to ensure that our goals are made? So I think we've some awesome 6 steps to really help people dial that piece in. You want to go?
I love it.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, so the very first one is figure out what you want. And what we mean by that is what are those exact specific goals? And I think that so many people miss this step, and it's probably one of the easiest steps to miss. But it's January, right? So everyone's doing weight goals or fitness goals, exercise goals. So let's say
gyms are packed.
Yeah.
Right now.
Maybe not. Like, what do they say people usually?
It's by the second Friday or something like that
so
of January.
Yeah.
People have already given up. But
I don't start till February just so I can beat that stat.
Is that one of your steps?
No, but I like the tactic. We should have added that. Okay, so it's dialing in very specific goals. So if you say, I want to lose weight, that's not going to work. This has to be something like, I want to lose 10 pounds by April 10th.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason it has to be so specific is it has to go along with your brain. So your brain, as soon as you decide you want to accomplish something, your brain kind of like, let's think about like AI. You know how you tell it to do something and AI just starts like putting out all this stuff. Our brain does the exact same thing. And so when we aren't very specific, we're not going to get a very good outcome. So when we just tell our brain, I want to lose weight, it doesn't know what to do with that. But if it knows I need to lose 10 pounds by April 10th, then it starts thinking, okay, how do I do that? What are the steps to lose the 10 pounds? And if I have to do it by April 10th, what does that look like? So the goals have to be very, very specific and dialed in.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's super simple. I agree. But I think one other thing to add to that, when you're setting these goals, is to tie a why to it. Like, you want to lose X amount of pounds by a certain date, but what's the why behind it? Which is going to tie your head to your heart a little bit, right? So like, you want to lose that weight because you have a wedding coming up, or you have this, or you want to look better in a swimsuit, or whatever it is. There's that reason behind it that you can constantly remind yourself of why am I doing this?
That's great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And there is a little bit of a line of thinking on that I don't know which camp I fall in yet, but whenever I miss a goal, I do find myself sometimes looking at myself as a failure when I don't hit it by that date. Maybe I was too aggressive on the date. If I'm like, I want to lose 15 pounds by April 1, and on April 2nd, I've lost 13 pounds. Am I like, is there a part of me that feels so defeated that I don't continue? Right? So I don't know. We can talk about this a little bit later, I think, too. But when setting those goals, give yourself some grace. And if you feel like you're one of those people that possibly would feel like a failure enough that you would quit if you don't hit it by that certain deadline, then just know there is a second line of thinking there, that the goal stays in play until it's met, right? Not necessarily by a certain date, but until it's done.
Sure.
Right? I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think it's a good add-in. I think everybody is different.
Totally.
Right. And
you got to figure out what works for you.
What works for you. And what works for you is going to be different than me, but that's a great piece of advice. I like it. You want to move on to number 2?
I do.
You want to do it?
Yeah. Again, a pretty simple one. These are pretty simple. The whole concept is 6 simple steps to crush any goal, right? So they're going to be simple, but most people fail their goals. So they're simple, but they work. So number 2, write it down. Don't just write it down one place. Write it down, laminate it, print it out, laminate it, and put it places that you will see every single day, right? Just as a constant reminder of what those goals are. A lot of people say even write your goals out every morning when you wake up. Rewrite the goal 3 times. Just the concept of like constantly writing it is you're just, again, you're training your brain what is most important.
What is the statistics that they say that if you the chances of your goal going up, I just heard this too, and it's a massive amount if you just write it down. Do you know that statistic? I'm going to mess it up, so I'm not going to say it, but it's significantly high that if we write down our goals, just the percentage of them accomplishing go up significantly.
It's over 50%.
Yeah,
I know
insane.
that. It's something that is crazy. So this step is one of the most important ones.
And it is so simple.
Yep. But people just don't do it, and then they wonder why they didn't meet their goal. So print it out, put it places, put it on your bathroom mirror, put it on your work computer, put it just everywhere. Put it anywhere.
I've laminated them. I carry them around every single day. Absolutely.
Put it in your wallet, like anything that you would see daily that you can almost be like, yeah, there's my goal again. Like it's almost to the point where you're like, when you see it down the road, you're like, man, I was really not going to let myself forget this goal. Definitely super, super important. And when you do print it out, like make sure that your spouse knows, your coworkers know, like have them make sure they all know that goal, because writing it down and then having other people know what it is so they can help hold you accountable as well it is a huge one. So print out a copy for your spouse. I would say
that's good. That's good. They do need to be on the same page, because when activities and habits start changing, they need to understand why.
Totally.
And I think when you said on step 1, tying it back to the heart, that makes them want to help you more.
Yep.
Right. So instead of just, I want to lose 10 pounds. I mean, if I said that to my husband, he'd be like, you don't need to lose 10 pounds. Even if I want it. So if I tell him the why behind it, then he's a lot more willing to, you can do it, babe. I know now, I understand why you're wanting to. So I like that.
For example, my health goal has gotten off of weight, where it probably should be some weight driven goals, but it's about, I want to be there to walk my daughter down the aisle someday.
Yeah.
So I need to get up and get my butt to the gym.
Yep.
And Amy is going to appreciate that goal and why I am maybe leaving in the morning before the house is up and getting out of the house. That's going to resonate with her a little bit more. She's going to appreciate it if she knows my why behind it as well.
Yep. I like it.
That's an awesome point. I think we're going to spend a decent amount of time on number 3.
Let's do it.
Because these are the like really in-depth kind of habits and stuff that you need to implement. You want to go ahead with number 3?
Yeah. So it's get the formula. Write it down. Obviously, we wrote down the goals, but how do we get the formula for these goals? And in that, we're going to talk about maybe studying it and following people, finding some mentors that will help you in this step. For me, I'm going to just kind of give a little perspective on this one. When I found Robin, and you and I both know Robin really well, and she's been a really big mentor in my life in mortgage industry, but I found her years and years and years ago, and she was somebody that produced more than me, was in the roles that I was in, and so I wanted to follow her. I didn't just want to follow her. I wanted to work for her. I wanted to talk to her as much as I could. I want to be around her. I want to consume as much as I can. Same. It's such a important piece. There always is somebody doing it better than you and where you want to be. You don't have to redo everything. You don't have to create all of this stuff. You just have to find the right people to follow. And this step helps you get that formula. It helps you create your formula onto what this is going to look like. What do you want to add to that?
And I would just say pause that and rewind it and listen to that again, because it's such an important thing to recognize and just know that it is going to be really difficult for you to come up with the plan, because if you knew the plan, you'd have already done that shit by now.
Sure.
Right? Yep. So there's people out there that have accomplished the goals that you want, that you can tap into. And what I have found is that when you do reach out to people to ask them that stuff, they're super honored by it, and they're going to take the time to talk to you about it, because them having achieved that goal is a milestone for them. So when you see people out there that have what you want, have done the stuff that you want to do, lean into it.
Amen. Don't
be jealous of it. Lean into it. Give them a call and say, hey, we don't know each other, but maybe you know each other, maybe you don't. But if you don't, introduce yourself. Tell them how amazed you are by them, and that you'd wonder if they would spend a little time teaching you how they did it.
Yep.
And get the plan, write it down step by step, right? And go to work, right? But I think, yeah, study. And if there's tons of books out there of people who have accomplished amazing things that you probably want to accomplish, go buy those books. There's so many different game plans, but you need to get a game plan. You need to detail it step by step. Here's the formula,
Yep.
right? Show the work, figure out everything that you've got to do, come up with a plan that's going to work for you. I think that's the most important step. And I think we've got a couple of like little add-on habits here that could help around this as well, right?
Yeah. So when I think about when we write out the plan and we have all the steps and everything in order, I find what people usually mess up the most is how long it's going to take, and or how far away that goal really is. And we talk when you and I talked about this. It's depth perception. Like, how far away is this goal? And I think we mess that up so much. I think we think it's so much farther than what it really is, and we don't really think about that. And so if our brain thinks it's so much farther, we don't have an urgency, or we're not really paying attention to the things going on around us with our brain and the articular activator. We've talked about that so many times, that once our brain knows my goal is not that far away, these are the steps I need, it starts paying attention to the things around in our daily activities that will either help or hinder our goal, that's going to help us accomplish it or hinder us accomplishing it. And so I think that adjusting that depth perception and really having an understanding of how far away the goal is so important.
Or how close
Yes.
you are to achieving
Yeah.
it. It's like when you look in your side mirrors and it says things in the mirror may be closer than they appear.
Yep.
That just came to mind off the hip.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%. And I think you see like memes or pictures of like a gold miner digging, and like he's been digging and gives up. And it's like if he would have like dug just, a
One
couple
more.
more times with
Yeah.
that shovel, there was
Yeah.
a massive, pile of gold on the other side. So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind is that like, you don't know how close you are. Keep going until you achieve that goal.
Ed Milet says all the time, well, he even wrote the book, The Power of One More, and how close that we are. One more call, one more sales pitch, one more this or that. And so many people give up. And I think that just is so perfect to that depth perception.
Yeah. And when you give up, you're just training yourself to that's okay.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, keep on going. I love that. You had some other, I think, tips on this one as well before we move on. A catalyst. I think like we need something that starting off point. We need that big bang, something to, you talk about getting the bus rolling.
Yeah,
right?
that one's my favorite for sure. Yes. Okay. So, when we're talking about this formula, you have to have some sort of like something that's going to get it going. Like, what is the big move? What is the catalyst? What is going to, create this? If you want to go to the gym, like some people say getting to the gym is the biggest step, right? Just getting yourself there in the morning. That would be like a catalyst idea. And so when you're making these goals, you have to figure out what that is and what is going to get the bus rolling for my favorite vocabulary term with it. So what is going to kick it off?
Yeah. So it makes me think like some examples of that as well might be, again, just if you're telling your spouse, telling somebody at work or whatever, like, hey, I'm doing this thing, right? And then if you don't do it now it's your word,
Yeah.
right? Like you've given somebody
Sure.
your word that you're doing that. For us with this podcast, right? It was setting a date, it was announcing that we were doing it and setting a date for filming it the first time.
Yep.
It was like, okay, now we
Now
can't
we have
really
to.
look back.
We can't go. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was our event.
Figure out what that big catalyst or big bang is for you that's going to get that bus rolling, because that momentum it becomes huge.
Yep.
Like a snowball.
And you don't
rolling
have to wait
downhill.
for it to be perfect. You just got to start it.
I love it. All right. We also talked about measuring in this, like on step number 3.
Yeah.
Part of this formula as well that I think that should be in there is, and you actually brought this up, and I thought it was huge because I had left it out of when I was kind of figuring out what we wanted to talk about today. But it was measuring the progress.
Yep.
Right. And
Measuring, tracking everything.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do that from our sales standpoints. You and I on a daily basis, like we track, if we're talking about a sales goal here, we track how many calls we make, how many face-to-faces, how many break breads, how many, thank you cards, even that, like all the stuff that we feel is the formula to create what we consider a successful day in sales. But if we take that outside of sales, whatever it is, if it's weight, challenge or workout challenge, to be making sure that you're tracking it, writing it down, because that is part of that formula.
Yeah, you kind of gamify it that way
Yeah.
too, right? Like you get a streak going
Yeah.
and you're tracking that streak. It's like, man, I've been to the gym 5 days in a row, and you don't want to break that streak. But if you don't remember, oh man, it's only been a couple days or whatever, you're not as tied into it.
Yeah.
Right. So
Perfect.
yeah, measuring and celebrating, right?
Yes.
Like as you're measuring it, don't lose your momentum by just not celebrating big wins. Like if you go 5 days in a row, or I'm coaching somebody right now, and one of his big things was just having developing a morning routine. And we have a text thread with everybody in our group. And so I sent him just like a really simple morning routine. And he texted the whole group yesterday morning, his first day, and was like super proud. Everybody was celebrating him for doing that. And it's obviously then makes him want to do it again the next day.
Absolutely.
So those little steps are huge to celebrate yourself and let other people celebrate your wins, and as you continue to down that journey, right? So it's again just bringing other people into it so they can help celebrate you.
It helps create the habit.
Yeah,
And make it consistent. Yeah. Let's move on to number 4. This one is good. And this is one I feel like people don't take the time to think about. And this is where we get blindsided, where we get hit by the Mack truck, right? And sometimes it's very simple. We keep talking about how we want to make these steps simple, but it's find and remove the obstacles.
Right. So in my mind, it's kind of like thinking of all the things that could go wrong. What could derail this, right? Is that kind of where you're going? Like,
Yeah,
what you're thinking?
it can be definitely that. So go ahead and explain that, and I'll.
Yeah, for me, finding those obstacles as I'm going through it, I'm thinking again. We talked about like what are the pitfalls and turning the piece of paper sideways before in the past. Like, what's everything that could go wrong in this situation? In this case, as far as like finding and removing obstacles, before we can remove them, we got to know what they could be. So you think about everything that could derail you from this goal.
Yeah.
And how do I preemptively remove those things? So, like if you're going to the gym and you're going to hit the snooze button, for me, like that's a big thing. If I allow myself to hit the snooze button once, then I'm going to hit it again and again, right? So how would I remove that obstacle? I wouldn't even have a snooze button. I wouldn't even, like, my phone would be across the room that I have to get my feet on the floor
And out of bed.
to go turn that annoying alarm off.
Yep.
So that's one example of finding that obstacle and
Yes.
removing it ahead of time.
Yes.
And then, if you find them as you go, great, remove them, but try to plan ahead. What are all the obstacles that could? Another one would be like, you don't have enough time in the morning to get to the gym because you woke up maybe a little bit late or whatever, and so you're just going to give yourself an excuse to go back to bed. But if you lay out all your clothes the night before, that would be another example of like finding that potential obstacle and just removing it. So think about all those things, and
I got a few. Like let's
go.
say you're gonna your goal is to quit sugar, right? Well, you might want to go through your house before you start this. When you're starting your plan, and get rid of all the things that call your name in the middle of the night, right? So these are simple. If you are in sales and the number one distraction is your emails, well, guess what? When you're in green time, you should be somewhere that you can't be around emails. They're not going to pop up anywhere, or make sure somebody else is covering them. Like, you really have to stop and think, what is the biggest thing, the biggest obstacle that is holding me back from doing the things and doing the habits that I have to hit my goals.
Yeah. And get rid of all those things. Pretty simple, but I think that pretty much.
Yep.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
Number 5 is the most boring, I would say, but it's just doing the freaking work.
Yep.
Right? You've got the plan. You've removed the obstacles. You've figured out who's done it before you. You've written out the goals, all of those things. But now it's time to do the freaking work. And this is the hardest. It's the most boring. It's the stuff that I think the biggest thing that's going to throw you off is just your willingness to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Like committing to the uncomfort that it's going to take to reach that goal, being more committed to the result than you are with the comfort of staying the same.
Yeah. You talk a lot about sometimes too, like get in your way and your mindset. Todd, our owner, is having a couple of us do this exercise, and
The company owner, Yeah.
Sorry.
We're not owned by anybody, but yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
The company that we work for, the owner there. Sorry. And so he told us, he actually had another guy on our coaching call do it. And then I'm like, I want to do that too. And I don't usually sign up for uncomfortable, putting myself without being told in uncomfortable situations, but this was really big. And what he told him was, I want you to write a letter to yourself, and I want you to tell yourself all the reasons why you won't do the thing I've asked him to do. So the thing he asked him to do was to call the top, 5 producers in his market, and why you won't do that. And I want you to write a letter to yourself and explain in this letter all the reasons that you won't do it and why. And I'm like, well, this is pretty intriguing to me. Like, where are we going at psychology wise to do this? And as we're just sitting, we haven't even done it. We're doing it actually right now. But as I'm sitting there, my brain is thinking about the power of this. And I think it's so important when we just say number 5 is do the work, is to maybe reflect in that a little bit. Like what, and it is obstacles and all those things, but what is it? Because when he made us write this out and actually write a letter to ourselves, it was crazy how the things that we thought were big or significant are not.
Right. But when in the moment, when they come up, they feel way bigger. So having planned for it and written it out, you're like, I knew this would come up, and I've already thought about it and how I'm going to.
And it's not that big. It's not that big of a giant. It's not that crazy. So doing that step, and I think that, I'm sorry, I kind of backtracked there. I think that could be more in the writing it down and that step. But it's such an important piece, which I think it makes it easier to do the work.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I love that. I think it falls into kind of all of these, but find and remove the obstacles that would fall into that, and finding the plan and everything. But now it's time to execute that plan.
Yep.
And this is going to be the one that the easiest place for you to fail. If you've done all these other things, this is really like, okay, how could you fail now?
Right.
And it's just you being too comfortable where you're at and not being so tied into that goal that you're willing to put in the hard work. This is the boring part. This is the part that we all know is just discipline.
Right.
It's discipline to the little things over and over and over again that are going to create huge results and help you crush those goals. For me, I heard a quote a while ago that just, I think we could close this number of strategy out, but with this quote. But the magic that you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding.
Yep.
And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, F right it is.
Now, why nobody can find the magic? They're
Right.
always searching.
Yeah.
It's in the work you're avoiding.
Yeah, because it's so comfortable. So get uncomfortable, get disciplined,
Do the work.
do the work.
Yep.
All right, let's close this thing out.
Yep.
What's the last step?
So the last step is, again, super simple, but it's don't quit.
Yeah.
And we have to really think about things like, why do we quit?
Tons of reasons, but most of them would be laid out ahead of time. I feel like with this it
Obstacles.
is like all those the obstacles, not having a plan, not failing for potential things that could come up as far as that would derail us, not having support from our significant others because we didn't let them know what our goals were. We didn't tie it to our heart. So there's all of that. But then when it like not quitting, right, is the only way that you can fail. A goal, any goal,
Just quit.
is by quitting.
Yep.
So stick with it. The timeline of the goal is when you get it done, and do all that work because it is worth it.
Amen.
Like that magic that you're looking for is there. You got to put in the work, but it is worth it. That's why you set the goal in the first place. If you give up, you're just telling yourself that your goals don't matter.
Right.
Right?
Well, you answered the question. That's exactly where I wanted, like, all these steps we did ahead of time to make number 6 so much easier. It's easy to quit, but it's not that easy to quit when you do these steps.
Right.
So these steps and all of the things that we've already went through make number 6 so much easier. If none of these things are done, quitting's so easy.
Right.
It's so easy.
Yeah. And don't be that type of person that
Yeah.
quits, because once you start down that path,
Gonna
you're
do
going
it
to keep
again.
down that path. Right. Well, I think we can, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Keep it as short and sweet as possible. I hope this was valuable for you guys out there. If it was, I'd love it if you would share it.
Share.
Maybe take a screenshot of this episode and tag us in it. Tag the podcast. Tag me. Tag Lacey. Whatever you would do, it would be super. It would mean a lot to us.
Very
But thanks for taking some time with us today. We will be back in a couple weeks with another episode, and I'm super excited for season 2.
Amen. Let's do it.